Hello and welcome to all our Support Fibro friends. We are welcoming our special friend Elaine as our guest today. Elaine is an educator and author at Navigating Life with Fibro. Her professional background includes 30 years in stress management, initially in nursing, then in health education. Since 2000, she has focused on developing and facilitating classes and support groups. Elaine has also worked with the Frida Center for Fibromyalgia and authored an ebook, Life Beyond Fibromyalgia, a personal guide for moving forward and leaving struggle behind, which you can purchase through Amazon. Welcome, Elaine. So glad to have you join us.
Thank you, Melissa. I'm glad to be here.
You know, I'm really excited for our Support Fibro friends to get to know you a little bit better. So if you could please tell us a little bit about your health journey and the current work you do in the community.
Okay, well, this whole part of my life started in 1989. Well, actually in 88, I was in a serious auto accident and I'd had perfect health before that. So this came as a total surprise when I wasn't recovering from it. And 18 months later, when I had just progressed to a point I wasn't going beyond it, then I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. And at the time I was a nurse, but I'd never heard of that term before. I didn't know what it was about. And I was given a little 3-page brochure and told to do some warm water aerobics, and they sent me to a trauma counselor for 3 sessions and said, this will get better. This will improve, but no clue how to do that. So I stumbled around for 4 or 5 years and really didn't think that there was anything wrong. I thought I was still just recovering from the accident itself. And I tried like some individual yoga and some trigger point therapy and various things. I thought I was going to stumble upon an answer that would take care of it for me. And after about 4 or 5 years, I realized that there really was something that had changed in my body. So then I had to start changing my approach. There wasn't a lot written about it right then, but I did find out that there was a research team up at Oregon Health Sciences in Portland, where I live, Portland, Oregon. So I started going to their conferences that they'd have every couple of years, and they'd tell what their latest research was and things that they were finding were helpful. So I started working with those. So long story short, it took me about 10 years really before I felt like I had my life really back and I could move beyond just caring for myself. There were no medications at that point in time. So it was really all about lifestyle change for me, which in retrospect really fits because I had just been introduced about 2 years before this when I did some training in biofeedback to teach classes around stress management. It really gave me a deep appreciation of the mind-body connection. So I think it was just supposed to play out the way it did, that I really had to work with the mind-body connection in my healing because there weren't medicines and whatever available at that time. So I was diagnosed in 89. In 2000, I'd given up nursing. And in 2000, I was really missing my profession. So I thought, what can I do, to get back into working with people in the health field? So I approached some health education centers of the hospitals in Portland, and I put together a 4-week class called Living Well with Fibromyalgia. Just kind of what my viewpoint at that point was, just to validate the experience for people, that what they were experiencing was real. And then I would share with them what I was learning at the Oregon Health Sciences, their conferences. But there wasn't a lot else still to offer them, but that's what I was doing. So, and then I was introduced to mindfulness by one of the people who attended one of my classes. And so I started working with that myself because I had noticed that whenever I was having a lot of stress in my life, my symptoms would just flare. Made a big difference in managing my symptoms. And so I started taking classes in mindfulness and have continued that practice now to the present time. And for me personally, that's been my foundational piece, was having some tool to help me calm my nervous system. For me personally.
I've been so inspired by your work when it comes into all the mindfulness practice and how you've developed that into your current work. I know I'm just super excited to share with the Support Fibro friends your new project. So I don't mean to skip ahead for all the questions, but with the current project you have, and I have them here too, is the healing message cards. So that's just something, well, do you mind, before we dive in deep into the healing message cards, can you share with us more about the inspiration behind this current project and sort of your love with photography?
Yeah, well, so anyway, so I just backtracking kind of my evolution, not all my evolution, my own healing journey, but my evolution in working with others in classes and in writing the book and in leading support groups. As I started out, focusing on the physical part, then I got into mindfulness, got into the mind body, working with mind, body, and spirit. And then, more and more I kept feeling like, our creativity, reconnecting with our creative urges is a really important part of our healing too. So about a year and a half ago, one day I was just saying like, I wish I could incorporate more of my own creativity in the work that I'm doing with others, but I didn't see what it was, really. And then, so it was maybe, 8-9 months later, it was the beginning of this year, just popped in my head one day. I said, well, you should do something with your photography, Elaine. I mean, I didn't think of it because that's such a natural part of me. And, it's not like I'm a trained photographer or anything. I just go out and take snapshots of everyday life. But my dad had a love of images, and I got my first little camera when I was 12 years old, and it's been a love of mine ever since. And I've used images in my own healing process. And when I was working with a trauma therapist a few years ago around dealing some deep trauma from my youth, I would bring in these collages of, photos and whatever, and it just helped our work move along so much faster. She felt like she, saw so much in me. So I started thinking about that early this year, doing something with my photography, and I thought, oh, okay. It just came up one day. Like I started to see it, like I create a card with an image, a photo image on one side, and then what I called a healing message on the other side. And the healing messages come out of my classes, things that we stumbled upon and found that seemed most helpful to people in their lives and things that were helpful to me in my life. And so that's kind of how it happened. But it was the most fun project for me. I wrote that ebook a couple of years ago, and I had wanted to write a book for a long time, spotlighting some of the things that I covered with people in my classes. But that was a real chore for me. When I got into the midst of it, it was really a chore at times. This project was not. And that's one of my messages to people too. And I think this is, I'm kind of an example of this as it came out, because I feel like there's been another layer of healing for me, I think, this year in expressing myself, some creative urge that I have and some love, a way of expressing myself creatively that just gives me wonderful feelings. And, I don't care what that is. I talked about it in the book. It could be, it could be making jewelry. It could be baking. It could be, a way that you deal with relationships. It could be, like right now, I'm pet sitting a couple of dogs out in the other room. It could be your relationships with animals. But I think finding some root, even though you're not feeling well, and you may have to modify it and then expand it as you get to feel more well, but finding that creative outlet, I think is so important. It's such an important part. It gives us a lot of oomph, and it uplifts our spirit, and it moves us forward. I really believe that. And this year was I get to experience that myself.
That's wonderful. And like you said, I love these cards. So let's get into the healing message cards right away, because I want people to know, like, okay, so you've launched the healing message cards. How are we using them? And I can share too. I mean, this was a good reminder for me to get back into what I've kind of learned with some of the health coaching as well. Because we talk about character strengths, and something that I struggled with was these character strengths in humor, but also observing beauty and nature. So you fit right in, and I've been uncovering and reading each with like things like rest and renew, but incorporating all of this. So I love these cards. So can you tell us more about the healing message cards?
Well, a lot of the healing messages come out of I've been working with mindfulness. I kind of steer away from using that term a lot because it's used so much now. I think it's overused and it's lost a lot of its meaning. But for me, it's about having that ability to let go of, having to respond to other things around me, even having to respond to my body in the moment, and just being present and just appreciating what's here in this moment through my senses. And so there's a lot of that. There's one about noticing beauty. There's one of the cards about that, because things like that, they fill us back up. We need to have ways that we enjoy that fill us back up. We have all these messages around self-care. Yes, self-care is incredibly important. That's part of the picture. But that can become like feeling like another chore or another task. And we have to engage in life again in a way like noticing beauty, or one of the cards is around laughter and humor. Have times with friends of yours that really see the light side of life, and share funny stories that have happened on vacations or whatever. Just to lift ourselves back up, because that puts our bodies in a space of feeling more safe. When we can lift, when we help our mindsets feel more positive, when we feel empowered that we can move ahead in our healing, and it refills our spirit, that's all interconnected, mind, body, and spirit. This isn't separate from. This isn't some nice little fluff thing that we can do out there just to make us feel good for a few moments. It actually changes the biochemistry in our bodies, and our bodies respond to it, and our bodies feel more safe. We're in those spaces, like resting and renewing, or noticing beauty, or humor. I'm just gonna share one of the cards. I've got some of them spread out here. I'm gonna share one right now. So I think that'll give a little bit more feel for them. This one's called Sources of Nectar. And I pet one of the places, there's 4 houses that I pet sit.
Oh, can you hold it up a little bit higher so we can see?
Okay, there it is. Oh, I thought you could. And it's this, they had a hummingbird feeder right outside their dining room. And I have tried to take so many pictures of these hummingbirds that come in, because they move really fast and a lot. So it was hard to capture one when it was still. So I finally got one, and because I feel like we have to look for, it's important, it's healing to pay attention to incorporating those things that fill us back up in life. So Nectar, I say, this is the message on the back. Nectar supplies replenishment and nourishment for your mind, body, and soul. What and where are the sources of your nectar? I think we forget that. We're in the midst of struggling with a chronic health, and where are the places, the people, the places, the things, the activities in life that fill us back up? What are the sources of sweetness in your life? Is there something your heart has longed to do for a very long time, or longs to do again? Reconnect with this longing and invite your imagination to brainstorm new possibilities. Most anything can be modified to make it possible for you. Your heart's longings contain important clues, and I have that in bold because I think it's important. Your heart's longings contain important clues about your personal journey to feeling whole, and that's how I define healing. It depends from individual to individual whether we'll be able to eliminate all our symptoms that we're living with, but we can move to that point of wholeness, of feeling, feeling complete as a human being, and feeling in touch with what we came here to express in life, that we're not small. We're not small. We're much bigger than, sometimes when we're just focused on our healing journey, it can feel like life is really small. So we have to have ways of opening that up. So then I suggest create a list of new life possibilities, in quotes, that stir your imagination and touch your heart. Listen deeply to your heart/spirit to discern the sources of your nectar in life. I think that's just something, even on a day that you're not feeling that well and low energy, you can just start to brainstorm on a piece of paper about, look at the things that used to bring you joy, or the nectar fill you back up, and think of new ones, or ways that you can modify to incorporate those back in your life again.
I love this project.
Because I look at this, Melissa, I look at this as all types of medicine.
Yes.
I say that on some of my cards. I talk about the medicine is for therefore is in nature and whatever, or that laughter is medicine and whatever. These are different types of medicine because they do have an impact for our body. And yeah.
Well, and I've noticed it slowed me down, and I don't know if this is how I was supposed to do it, but it's sort of like on a daily basis. It's kind of a surprise for me. So I'll turn over one more card. But I've been really trying to, I mean, I'm not very good at self-care. That's something that I've had to really, really learn, or to take a short break. So the cards have really helped me take that break, because I'm trying to do it as a surprise. So as I'm
Oh, I love
having
it.
like, and I turn the card over, it's again, it feels like, ooh, okay, what is this new thing? And it's just a good reminder. And I take that moment of pause, and I even look at the pictures and sort of visualize like myself out there in the world. And so it's really helped me that way. So that's why I'm just like, let's share with our support fibro friends more of the work you're doing.
That's great. That's great. I love how you're doing it. Some people kind of pick, an area, like there's one on boundaries, and there's different ones, and some on self-compassion. I'm big on compassion. They'll pick like 2 or 3 cards and just work with those for a while or different. And in my Fibro Circle group that I do online, what they're doing is like they're carrying them in their purse or their pocket with them to work, and that they're feeling kind of dragged down, then they'll pull that out and gives them a shot of inspiration or resets their mindset.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I like about them, and why I put them in the form of these cards, is because they're so portable.
And that helps quite a bit. And I think for some of them too, it's like I've noticed I may have to take a little bit more time with them because it's like, oh man, I felt like you're reading my mind, especially on some of the things like these reminders that I need to remember. Because I personally get into so much of a work mode and the passion for what we're doing at the organization. I can easily forget to take breaks. So this has been a great way to incorporate to my life, and a tangible reminder that it's different than setting an alarm. So I like this.
Yeah, and that's an important point that you just made, your passion. I ran into this summer. I did this over the summer. I started kind of writing down different topics that I wanted to incorporate in the cards, and then start going through my photos and picking out photos, and then start to, pair messages with photos. So, in June, I really got into it, working with the photos and spreading them out and trying to match up. So June, July, August, early September, I finally got the first printing done. But I was having so much fun with it. I liked it that sometimes I exhausted myself. So that's an important thing to know. No matter what it is, it's energy. It's energy that you're expending. So there were lessons for me even in that.
Well, and I can see the fun because you have so many beautiful pictures, and wouldn't even know how you decided on what picture goes where, and then the message behind it. It's incredible, and there's so much thought that goes into it. I'm so excited that you've built this and have created this project for the chronic illness community. So,
Oh, thank you, Melissa. The thing is, it really turned into an intuitive process for me. I started with some that I knew. I had this list of, kind of topic areas that I wanted to address, and then I'd have to distill them down so they were short for the backs of the cards. And then, looking through, it became like an intuitive process. And one of the cards is around trusting your intuition, because I think that's a big part of our healing too, because our body, even though our bodies are challenged, they have tremendous information for us and tremendous amounts of wisdom. And sometimes that comes through with really paying attention to that intuitive sense.
oh, I can see that. It's almost this perfect gift you've given us. And I know that you do fibromyalgia healing circles. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that work and sort of the integration of inspiration between the healing message cards?
Yeah, well, I taught classes for years, classes and led a support. I taught classes for 10 years at a community education center associated with one of the metro hospitals, and then did the fibro support group for 8.5 years. And then I kind of semi-retired because I'm 74 now. I just turned 74 at the end of August. So I want to keep contributing because I was teaching with Dr. Liptan at the Frida Center for a few years. I let go of that in 2018 and decided I'd start to do some healing circles online, so I wouldn't have to travel to do places and everything. And she used to say to me, "Do you still want to do this, Elaine?" And I said, "Yeah, you don't understand. This is part of what keeps me healthy. And it is that sharing and that contributing has meaning for me. And I think that's, everybody has their own purpose and meaning, but really discovering that and incorporating that into your life, making sure that that's part of your life is really a foundational piece of healing, I believe. So, but I wanted to make things a little easier for myself. So I did, in the fall of 2018, then started doing, I call them fibro healing circles online that meet once a month. And they're very small. I only take 4 people in a circle. And so it's a support group, and we meet via Zoom so that, we can see each other. And I have people in a group now, one who's down in Mexico, one who's in Fargo, North Dakota, had them back in New York State, people from all over. And it's just a nice way to connect. And you can be at home, you can be in your pajamas, whatever. Yeah. So it's make it easier for me because I can just do it from home. I don't travel, and they can too. So I'm just doing one right now. I was going to start more this fall and decided not to because I wanted to launch the cards. And then at the first of the year, I'll probably open up and maybe start one or more groups, and we'll be working specifically with the cards a lot of the time because I've started to introduce them in the groups that I have now, and they really like them. So.
Well, keep us posted because I mean, we've had a chance to meet in person, and you have this gift of healing in the process of fibromyalgia and just bringing that to others. It's been such an influence and inspiration, and I can't, every time we meet up, I just can't wait to meet you again next year in 2020. But our conversations just continue because even I learned so much from you in this process that I can't wait.
And vice versa. And vice versa. Because I love, I've been in healthcare since a long, long time, almost how many years, long time. Started out as a nurse and then went to health education. But I see you trying to foster creating new paradigms of healthcare and how people access it. So that is so meaningful to me.
Well, and we need to work together on this collaborative model and take these things so we can give patients the solutions. And one thing we talk a lot about—
give them options, and don't feel like they have to follow a certain path that doesn't work for them, or they're not feeling respected on that path, that they can follow the path that really nourishes them.
And are there other tools within patient empowerment that you see or you'd want patients to know about? I guess when it goes along about the healing journey?
Well, I think really, whatever you can learn or practices that you can incorporate in your life around nourishing that mind, body, and spirit. I work with meditation or mindfulness, presence types of practices, and there's 2 or 3 cards that speak to that, and you'll find that they're very simple because the practice I use, I just incorporate in my daily life now because I've been practicing it since 2000, 2001. But, some people use guided imagery. Some people have used biofeedback. Something I think is really important is trauma release work. And I did some work several years. It was about 10 years after the auto accident because I didn't know of this type of work at that time. And a friend of mine had worked with this therapist, and she referred me to her, and I made tremendous headway when I released the trauma. Now, I had met with a trauma counselor that doctor who diagnosed me with, but it was talk therapy. When we did it from a body focus around reeling signals in my body when I was experiencing a lot of distress, I just made tremendous headway. And then I returned to her a few years ago when an event happened in my family that triggered a panic attack for me, and did a much deeper releasing of trauma from my childhood. And each time I've done that, it's tremendous. It's like a liberation of my body. That's all I can say. It's liberated my body so much and let go of some of the bothersome symptoms. So if you feel like that's any part of what you may be carrying as some old trauma, then I really suggest finding a body-focused trauma therapist who specializes in that. It's deeply healing for the body.
Yeah, and it's good that we talk about these different resources because some of us may need more and others different ones. Because for
everybody's different.
Yeah,
everybody's different.
I mean, I love more of a visualization exercises and guided imagery because it keeps my brain focused, because I can tend to wander in meditation exercises. Or you
And
get
that's okay.
intrusive thoughts. So I noticed it keeps, so I love this input. And I think this is what makes collaboration so unique when we talk about these things, bring in the different resources. So I definitely want our Support Fibro friends to connect with you more. So where can our listeners connect with you online and your website and everything?
Okay, online, my website is navigatinglifewithfibro.com. And my Facebook page is the same, facebook.com/navigatinglifewithfibro. And on my on the home page of my website, there's a box at the bottom if you want to contact me at all, if you have questions or whatever, just feel free to contact me there.
Okay.
I love it. I just had a contact from somebody in England, a young woman in England. I just love it. I love, I'm not a real techie. I didn't grow up with tech because of my age, but I just love that it allows so much interconnection and helping each other in different parts of the world right now.
Yes, it's helped so much. I know some of us feel overwhelmed at times with social media, but it does help connect us. I know I just was talking to someone else about invisible conditions when I was first diagnosed, which was in the 90s, and I didn't have these tools. So I know that we didn't have these when these things came up. So trying to find resources. So it's good that I can connect people with you now.
Thanks.
And just keep our conversations going.
Yeah. You're doing incredible work, Melissa.
Thank you. Our team is definitely, we're excited for 2020. And I just want to make sure people know that the healing message cards, they can be purchased through your website, correct?
Through my website, yeah. There's a page on the website that's called Healing Tools at the end, and that describes everything. I'll tell you a little bit. There's 36, there's 40 in a set. There's 36 that I created with my photos and messages on the back, and there's 4 blank ones, because this is really important. I want people to, as they work with these, to create their own personalized message cards too.
Oh, okay. So we can actually create our own?
Oh, yes. And I have a couple of pages that I send out to people that gives them suggestions how to use the cards, and also creating your own cards. You can, on that side where, like, while I would have a photo, you could, paste your own photo, you could collage something, you could draw something, color something, whatever. But that whole process of creating the card and a message that you found is really reinforcing for you as far as your healing, that's important.
Well, I think this is so wonderful of you to create something so unique for the chronic illness communities and fibromyalgia and other communities. I think support group leaders, I definitely want them to know more about, but just general patients. It's been such a joy to have them. Like I said, it's been a surprise each morning. And again, a good reminder that I need to take a break. And like I said, for me, some of them are like, man, she just read my mind in that reinforcement, and I need to take a little bit more time with that card.
Great.
So it's been absolutely wonderful to have you on as a guest, Elaine, and I can't wait to have you back again in 2020 as we continue, especially when I go visit Portland again in person.
I look forward to seeing you again.
Do you have any other last messages you wanted to share with our Support Fibro friends?
Nothing that I can think of, except, one of my underlying messages anymore, and it's on my my Facebook page, is, my really focus is around self-kindness, healing tools of self-kindness. And I think, and there's a couple of cards in the deck that'll speak to that. And I think that's so important to always remember to be kind to yourself.
That is a big reminder that we try to do, because you can say some pretty harsh words to yourself.
Oh, yes.
And being compassionate to your own self is super important. So I think that's even for another discussion all in itself. So
yes, that's a big topic right there.
And I know some of our team members like Brandy and Misha are really big in that component. So I think in 2020, we need to have them come on and we can have you have a discussion with them further. And so
that'll be fun.
So I appreciate your time, Elaine. Thank you so much. To all our Support Fibro friends, I'll be including a link in the description, and please connect with Elaine and learn more about the healing message cards and our fibromyalgia healing circles. And we will check in with you soon. Bye.
Take care.